Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bull Take Scouting Podcast. Well, draft season is really upon us, as the draft is just 18 days away. And as we're recording this right now on Sunday night, it's been a week full of reports and rumors from all the analysts around the NFL draft media. And man, we've heard a ton of interesting things that really almost conflict each other in a lot of cases. So we're gonna, during this episode, really unpack these rumors. And do you want to start us off, Alex?
Yeah, so I'm just going to touch on where we heard these rumors. Like you said, all around draft media, and these are rumors just over the past week. Obviously, we're not going to discuss every single one we've heard. We're just going to touch on the ones we think are the biggest, the most interesting, and most relevant to you guys. If you want to see all of the rumors that we've compiled, you can check out that post on our Instagram page. And again, that's not even half of all the rumors we've heard over the past week. So, without further ado, let's just start into it. We'll go through in order of time. So we'll start with the ones that we heard early last week. We'll start with one from Peter King talking about the Atlanta Falcons at number 4. That's really where most people think the draft starts. I think it's kind of zoning in that Mac Jones is going to be the 49ers pick. Although later in this episode, we will get into the fact that some people are saying not so fast on Mac Jones. But back to this Falcons rumor by Peter King. He's saying that they could go Kyle Pitts or even an offensive tackle, although in his opinion, he's thinking they're going to take Lance. So what are you thinking about that rumor and other rumors we heard about the Falcons?
Yeah, I want to bring up Chris Mortensen's report. He's a very well-respected ESPN draft analyst, and he said on the 6th of April that the Falcons are split at number 4 because head coach Arthur Smith is lobbying for a non-quarterback because he thinks that Matt Ryan still has several years of high-level play ahead of him, while GM Terry Fontenot wants to draft a quarterback at number 4, and that this quarterback would probably be Trey Lance. So I think that what we can gather across these couple of rumors is that if Atlanta goes quarterback, it looks like it's going to be Trey Lance, which also means that chances are he's going to be available. Now, it's really, I think we're still yet to see what they've decided on, because I know their beat reporter who works for a primary Atlanta newspaper, D. Orlando Ledbetter, said as of yesterday that Atlanta is no longer facing a divide in terms of what to do. So maybe this week, throughout all these draft meetings that they're having regularly, they've come to a decision. Maybe not. You never know with the draft. But I think that if I were to guess right now, I do think that they're going Trey Lance. But, man, you cannot at all rule out a non-QB like Kyle Pitts or trading down right now.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I think what we can gather from all the other rumors that we have also heard regarding the Falcons, it's pretty much 50-50 in my opinion on whether they go quarterback or Kyle Pitts. I heard from some other rumors that Arthur Smith wanted Kyle Pitts, and Terry Fontenot wanted a quarterback who we can assume is Trey Lance. But I think that's a really interesting thing you brought up earlier, where you said that means we can assume that Trey Lance is going to be available. So I just think that's a really intriguing point to bring up, because sure, all these rumors are focused on the Falcons and what the Falcons are going to do. But the fact that Fontenot wants Trey Lance, obviously they don't know what the 49ers are doing, but they're going to have a better idea than what we know in the media. So you're right. You can kind of assume that means the 49ers will most likely be taking Mac Jones, which we both, as we've said multiple times, think that's just going to be a mistake. But yeah, I think right now, looking at the Falcons at number 4, I think we can almost narrow it down to Trey Lance and Kyle Pitts at 4. Although we shouldn't rule out them trading down. I think if they get a really big offer and they're not sold on Trey Lance, it would be smart of them to take that if they got offered 2 firsts, similar to what the Dolphins were offered at pick 3.
Yeah, I just think that Carolina trading for Sam Darnold makes it a lot more difficult for them to move that 4th pick. I don't think there's going to be anybody who's going to come up as high as 4th overall to draft a quarterback, because if you look at pick 5, the Bengals, pick 6, the Dolphins, pick 7, Detroit is a wild card. Then you have pick 8, the Panthers, which we thought was going to be a quarterback pick, and now it's really looking like it won't be. this might be a situation where you don't need to move that high and teams aren't going to target that 4th overall pick like they might have if the Panthers were still locked in on a quarterback in this draft class. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. And I mean, let's touch on the 49ers and really, has the status quo changed on this pick since we were last on the air? And I mean, we've seen that it's probably Mac Jones, and I would say that it's the same, but there is conflicting reports coming from this NFL draft media. Adam Schefter, who is really as plugged in as anyone is, he'd be shocked if Mac Jones isn't the pick at 3. And I mean, I put so much credit into that statement, and if he's saying that, it's really hard for me to see that it won't happen. But it has to be noted that Tony Pauline from Pro Football Network said that it's not as much a given as people are presenting it to be, and that it's probably a 50-50 shot that the 49ers pick Mac Jones or a different quarterback. And so that's kind of interesting because you have Schefter and other guys like Daniel Jeremiah are still reiterating that it's going to be Mac Jones. And then you have some other people saying it's not. I still think that those people saying that it's not is really smoke, because I mean, if you look at the credibility of Adam Schefter, he is the guy along with Ian Rappaport in this industry who breaks all the deals that happen, all the news and everything. So I think it's going to be Mac Jones at 3, and then Atlanta's the real turning point, because whether or not they pick Pitts or Lance, let's say, that affects everything in terms of who's getting quarterbacks after that, who's getting Kyle Pitts. If the Dolphins are targeting Pitts, then they might have to go somebody else like Devontae Smith, and then maybe that affects who the Giants pick at 11. I mean, it's a whole domino effect based on who the Falcons are picking at 4.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Regardless of which quarterback the 49ers take, that's not going to affect the draft as much as if the Falcons take a quarterback at pick 4. We know the 49ers are taking a quarterback at 3. Obviously, if they don't take Mac Jones, he might fall to who knows now. Carolina's off the table, so he could fall far, but that's not going to affect the draft as much as, like you said, whether the Falcons take Kyle Pitts or Trey Lance or even Justin Fields. So moving on, I want to continue to talk about these quarterback rumors.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields in general. It's been really, really quiet on the Justin Fields front, rumor-wise, if I'm being honest. We've heard we don't hear any more rumors about Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson because they're locked in 1 and 2.
Yes.
But we hear so much about Mac Jones going to the 49ers. We hear quite a bit about Trey Lance going to the 49ers and the Falcons. We don't hear much about Justin Fields at all. But the one thing I did want to point out, Benjamin Albright, 2 days ago, so that would be April 9th, he said in an interview he did that the link's on his Twitter page. I don't remember who it was with, but he was doing an interview with someone. He said that, and I'll not a direct quote, but he said, there is a quarterback who the Lions will take if he falls to them. And then he furthered it up by saying, I would not make this pick, but they will. To me, that's a huge statement. First of all, earlier in the interview, he listed his quarterback, his own quarterback rankings, and he has Zach Wilson above Trevor Lawrence. We don't really care about that. Then he has, obviously it's news, but not in the rumor side of things. Then he has Trey Lance 3, Justin Fields 4, and Mac Jones 5. So to me, it's 50-50 right now that Mac Jones goes 3 to the 49ers. Let's just assume, for our sake, that happens. Obviously, he wouldn't think it's a mistake for them to pick Trey Lance. So to me, he's saying they like Justin Fields, and if he falls there, they will take him. That's what I took from that interview by putting together those two parts of his quarterback rankings and his statement about the Lions taking a quarterback. So what do you think about that statement from Benjamin Albright?
I could totally see it, because I mean the piece of the puzzle that we're kind of not seeing is that we really want to look at who are the teams taking a quarterback. If this quarterback goes there, then the next team that wants a quarterback will take this quarterback. Well, it might not be that clear cut. There might be a team who wouldn't take these two quarterbacks, but if this one is there, they'll take him. And I think that's the position that the Detroit Lions are in. They don't need a quarterback. They don't need to force that pick whatsoever, because even if Jared Goff is not the long-term answer, they are in a position where they have job security, new GM, new head coach. They want to acquire new picks and really build the team before dropping in the quarterback. But if you do have that quarterback that you've fallen in love with in this process and you project him as a franchise quarterback that can lead your team, you've got to take him if he's there. So I think how the pieces are lining up, and with Daniel Jeremiah sending Justin Fields to Detroit in his latest mock draft, I mean, I could see Justin Fields landing in Detroit. And so that makes it interesting, because if it's Mac Jones at 3, which I think it probably is, the Falcons at 4 seem still really undecided. But regardless of what they're doing at 4, it could be Justin Fields at 7 anyways, because it looks like the Falcons' quarterback would be Trey Lance. And so whether they trade down or they pick a non-quarterback like Kyle Pitts, or they pick Trey Lance, it's looking like Justin Fields may very well be there for the Detroit Lions. So I would pay a lot of attention to the Lions Fields fit. And I mean, I got a question for you. Let's say that Atlanta doesn't go quarterback, and then Fields goes to the Lions. Who is picking Trey Lance if Mac Jones goes at 3?
I was going to ask you that question. But that's a great point. If the Falcons take Kyle Pitts at 4, obviously, I highly doubt the Bengals are trading out of 5. And the Dolphins are not trading out of 6. They traded up to stay there.
Yeah.
And we're going to assume Justin Fields goes 7. I think that's a great point. Where does Trey Lance go? And I would say there's no clear-cut answers. We haven't heard very many rumors outside of the 49ers and the Falcons to who else likes Trey Lance. I could honestly.
Well, actually, we have. We've received a report from is his first name Mike Lombardi from NBC Sports,
Mike Lombardi,
who said that the Washington football team would be willing to send all their picks to a team to take Trey Lance, and they're infatuated with him. And given Ron Rivera's past with coaching a similar quarterback in Cam Newton, I wouldn't be surprised. So I could see Washington coming up there if he starts to slide. And by sliding means the Falcons decide not to take him at 4.
Yeah, I think I misspoke when I said that. What I meant to say was there's no other teams in the top 10 that we've heard connected to Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, but where I was going was 7. Let's assume the Lions, Justin Fields is their guy. They take Justin Fields. I would say watch out for 8 with the Carolina Panthers. Not that they're going to take him. Obviously, they traded for Sam Darnold. But we've heard reports that the Panthers would love to trade out of there. And the Broncos at 9 as well. So if the Panthers don't want to trade out, then maybe the Broncos at 9. I know Brendan Albright said they would love to trade down. They really like Najee Harris, and if they can trade down, maybe Najee Harris would be the target. I think maybe the Broncos at 9 and the Washington football team at 19.
Yes.
That could be an interesting trade to watch out for on draft day if the Falcons do pass up on Trey Lance and pick Kyle Pitts. I don't think we'd see Trey Lance fall outside the top 10. I think a team's going to move up for him. There's going to be teams that love him, like you said, the Washington football team. They're going to want to secure him inside the top 10. I think that if I had to say one trade to watch out for on draft day, let's watch out for the Washington football team moving up from 19 to 9 to draft Trey Lance if we see the Falcons take Kyle Pitts at 4.
Man, I mean, the Broncos are really interesting and confusing to me. I haven't really heard them being linked to any specific player. And before free agency, everybody penciled in a cornerback because they're a huge need. But then they went out and signed Kyle Fuller and Ronald Darby, filling that need. And so we've heard that they want to trade down per Benjamin Albright, but I can't accept that they're completely confident with passing on a quarterback if one is there to be able to go forward with Drew Lock. I mean, they could. I mean, I would never say never at all. And I think that it's still out there, the possibility that the Denver Broncos select a quarterback if one is there at 9th overall. But the other thing they could do is if they don't want a quarterback, they could put out a lot of information that they do want one. Somebody jumps them for a quarterback like Washington or New England, even Chicago, any of these teams really. And then yet another top non-quarterback prospect falls to them, and they could get a really nice foundational piece at 9th overall. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the buzz coming out of Denver is in the coming weeks.
I don't think you can take any of the buzz that comes out of Denver very seriously at all. I mean, Benjamin Albright specializes in the Broncos, and we track the reporter accuracy.
here at Bull Take Scouting over the last couple of years, and he has been one of the most accurate reporters in the draft media. So I'll definitely be listening to what he has to say.
I'll be listening to what Benjamin Albright says. Like you said, he's been extremely reliable. But other than him, if you just hear buzz coming out of Denver that, oh, they don't like any of these quarterbacks, that could be so they don't have somebody jump them.
Yeah.
Or, oh, they love 3 of these quarterbacks all of a sudden. That could be so they get somebody to jump them and have a good player fall.
Exactly.
Past the Panthers and fall to them. So it especially less than 3 weeks till draft day, the rumors start to, turn out daily. And you got to start taking them with a grain of salt. But the last thing on the Broncos, I'm working on my mock draft right now that I'll be posting tomorrow, Monday the 12th. And the Broncos is a spot. I'm stuck right now.
I would be too.
I don't want to give away any of my picks. You'll have to check our Instagram page to see that. But the Broncos, I'm like, who do I send there? They've been connected to pretty much one player, in Najee Harris, and they're not going to pick him 9. So
yeah,
Broncos is a tough spot. So I think
in my head, and at any time, I'm just thinking like, oh, I mean, I'll just like run through like the first 8 picks in my head, even if I'm not actually doing like a mock draft, and then I'm like, wait, what would the Broncos do? I mean, maybe they go offensive line, but I don't know. I think they want to trade down. But let's talk about the Panthers, because now that they've traded for Sam Darnold, it looks highly unlikely that they're going to pick a quarterback. I know Tony Pauline recently said that if Lance is there, maybe they pick him, but it's highly unlikely, and I agree. I don't see it happening. I think they're not going to quarterback. But really, there hasn't been any really straight connection to any player, and I think that's because they want to go best player available, and it's not clear yet who that best player is going to be at 8th overall. I know that Joe Person, who basically ends up giving us the Falcons pick or the Panthers pick every year, he works for The Athletic, and he has a tremendous recent history in terms of providing the Panthers first-round pick every year. He said that Penei Sewell, Kyle Pitts, and the top cornerbacks are all in play for Carolina. So I think that means that they don't really know yet how the board is going to shake out ahead of them. And I know that Tony Pauline said that Penei Sewell would probably be their guy if he's there, considering that it's unlikely that Kyle Pitts is there. So, I mean, I really think that Penei Sewell can end up being a Panther, but at the end of the month, just piecing the puzzle together, you got like Jamar Chase going 5th. Kyle Pitts is going to be going to the Falcons. If not the Falcons, maybe the Dolphins. It's tough to see him being there at 8. If he's there, I think they take him. But Detroit was a potential spot for Penei Sewell. But if they were to go Justin Fields, then he would be there at 8. And I think that the Panthers would jump all over that.
Yeah, so the Panthers are 8. Let me just walk you through a report I heard from Albert. Mm-hmm. He basically laid out the 6 players that he thinks will go 1 through 6. He said the 4 quarterbacks, or he said 4 quarterbacks. He didn't specify which ones. Obviously, yes. He said Lance and Wilson. The other 2, he didn't clarify. It's going to be 2 of the 3, Lance, Mac Jones, and Justin Fields. Then he said 5 and 6. He said Jamar Chase and Kyle Pitts. He didn't specify that was the order, but I think
it would be
that Chase is going 5 and Kyle Pitts is going 6. I think that would make a lot of sense for the Dolphins. I think that's a reason why they wanted to stay in the top, or stay in the top 10 or the top 8. Because if you remember, they traded down to 12, but did whatever they could to get back up. So I think the most logical option would be to secure Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I know that Benjamin Albright connected them heavily to Devontae Smith. And as reliable as he is, I just can't see them moving up and giving a first-rounder to get back up from 12 to 6 for Devontae Smith, because he could be there at 12, or maybe you just need to jump 2 or 3 picks. So I don't think that's happening, and I could definitely see Kyle Pitts going there.
Yeah, and then so if those are first 6 picks, and we're assuming that Justin Fields is the quarterback.
Well, I wouldn't assume that. I mean, it's definitely a real possibility, but just putting it out there that we're not saying that like take it to the bank. Justin Fields is going to the Lions, but it's just an emerging possibility.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're making the assumption that Fields is the quarterback that they like, that would leave Sewell right for the taking for the Panthers. Yeah. So I think Sewell to the Panthers is, like you said, a real possibility. It's something we should really, really watch out for. If Sewell goes 7 to the Lions, I think honestly, that's probably the earliest he could go. Maybe the Falcons at 4, but I doubt it.
No.
If he does go at 7 to the Lions, where do you think the Panthers go from there?
That's really interesting. If we're saying that, so Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, and Penei Sewell are all off the board.
Correct.
I think they've shown that they're willing to invest heavily in the defense, so I think they would go Patrick Surtain. If not that, maybe they'd go Rashawn Slater. I think it would be one of those two players if all of those guys were off the board by their pick.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. They want to go BPA. I think a lot of people have Patrick Surtain in the top 10 at least players on their board, and Surtain would fill a need. We have one of our viewers, Fidel, saying Fields to the Niners.
You can't rule it out.
Yeah, not at all. I don't think anyone really knows outside of the two GM and head coach and Kyle Shanahan. But
I gotta say, Fidel, I remember you were banging the table saying that the trade was for Mac Jones like the day after. I think trust your gut. I think that's going to end up being correct.
Yeah, I think Fields probably makes the most sense to us. He's both of ours QB3, but I do think it's leaning Mac Jones. I think if we want to move away from these top 8 picks,
let's talk about Dallas because we've talked about 9.
All right, so moving. Hold on, Fidel's saying that was 3 weeks ago.
I know, but the reports that have come out since then have just strengthened that. So, I mean, I think the correct pick would be Justin Fields. But, I mean, when Adam Schefter says, I would be shocked if the pick isn't Mac Jones, I mean, it's hard for me to go against that.
Yeah, Fidel saying
things change, they do.
Quick. Fidel, if you know something we don't, please let us know.
Exactly, I agree. And so moving on to the Cowboys, we've really been penciling in a cornerback for the majority of this draft process, especially Patrick Surtain. I know each of my mock drafts has had Patrick Surtain going to Dallas, but Albert Breer made a really interesting point on his belief of where the Cowboys are going to go with this pick, in that the Dan Quinn defense is really zone heavy and doesn't really require a cornerback of that elite caliber. And so taking a cornerback with a 10th pick overall might not really be necessary for that defense to function well. So Albert Breer said that he could really see Rashawn Slater being the pick for the Cowboys because he's a guy that just fills multiple positions over the offensive line. That line was the core of their football team when they were a really good team a couple of years ago, and it's since then lost a little bit of its strength. And picking Rashawn Slater would definitely fortify it quite a bit. So my ears kind of perked up when he said that on his most recent podcast, because I think it makes a lot of sense. They really might not need to go cornerback, and maybe Rashawn Slater will be the pick. And by the way, that would likely mean that the Philadelphia Eagles would be getting Patrick Surtain after moving down from 6 to 12 and picking up an extra first rounder to get a player that I think is going to be a pro baller in the NFL. If Patrick Surtain is the pick for the Eagles, they are one of the biggest winners of the first round of the NFL draft.
Well, I just want to say, I think the Eagles did a great job. We never really touched on what they did with that trade moving from 6 to 12. They picked up a first-round pick, moving down 6 spots outside of the top 5. If all things go right, they should have 3 first-round picks next year. I know this trade happened weeks ago, but we never really talked about the Eagles side of things. They did very, very well with that trade.
Yes.
How crazy that quarterback situation has been, whatever. They know how to make trades in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to the Cowboys, I thought that was really interesting what Breer said about needing a zone corner. However, Patrick Surtain is a very, very good zone corner.
As well, yes.
He would fit perfectly into that system.
He really would, yeah.
So yeah, maybe they don't need a top tier zone corner, but he would just help improve that defense even more than a second, third round guy that's good at zone. So yeah. I think you could take that rumor multiple ways. So I just thought we'd highlight both sides of that. Well, maybe they do pass on corner, but Benjamin Albright did say that they would take a corner. They would. How do I phrase this correctly? If the corner they like is there, they're taking him at 10, and combining that with Albert Breer's opinion on Dan Quinn's defense, to me, the corner they like most is Patrick Surtain.
That's true, actually. So maybe he's thinking in the right way in terms of analyzing the Cowboys' defensive scheme, but maybe that actually strengthens the case for Patrick Surtain being the pick. And the one other thing to mention with the Cowboys is that Chris Mortensen dropped a bombshell really this week in saying that Jerry Jones is infatuated with Kyle Pitts and would consider moving up for him. And I think honestly that might be more. I mean, it could very well be true. I just don't think it's realistic.
Jerry Jones.
I'm sure it's true, but I don't think this has any substance in terms of projecting the draft, because how would they get Kyle Pitts? I think he's going in the top 6 picks. They would have to trade with Atlanta. I mean, if Atlanta isn't taking a quarterback, they should definitely, in my opinion, I know you think they should take Kyle Pitts regardless. I think they should take Justin Fields if he's there. And if for some reason they don't want a quarterback, they should definitely be getting out of that 4th pick and acquiring capital, because at the 10th pick, they'll still be a really good player there. It's just so difficult to see the Cowboys being able to get Kyle Pitts in this draft, even if Jerry Jones is indeed infatuated with him.
He was infatuated with Johnny Manziel, and they took Zach Martin instead. He doesn't run the draft. The draft over there in Dallas. He can love all the players he wants. It's the younger Jones making the pick, and they've done really well in the draft. I just want to touch on a question we got from Abe. He said, "What's your guys' opinion on who the Bengals should take? I think they'd be mistaken to go Chase over Sewell." I agree with that, Abe. I think I honestly do have Chase and Sewell rated very, very closely. I think this draft is 25 wide receivers deep. I mean, you can get a really good starting wide receiver in day 2 or 3. And although this is also a very good offensive tackle class, the drop-off from Penei Sewell to the 2nd and 3rd round offensive tackles is a much bigger drop-off than that of the wide receivers.
I agree. I would pick Penei Sewell. For me, he's the best non-quarterback in this draft, even though I think Kyle Pitts is really close. And I have Jamar Chase rated very highly also. I think that you have to be getting Joe Burrow protection, and I wouldn't wait for that really 3rd tier of offensive linemen. Exactly. Burrow already tore his ACL. He needs to be protected. You have a guy as good as Penei Sewell sitting there, going to be available at 5th. I would pick him. I mean, look at the guys you can get at the top of the 2nd round. I think at 38, overall, it's not a guarantee that either Terrace Marshall or Rashad Bateman is going to be available. But, I mean, I think one of them, the chances are one of the 2 will be. And that would be a home run pick. If you were to get Penei Sewell 5th overall if you were Cincinnati, and then you combine that with picking a wide receiver of the caliber of Rashad Bateman or Terrace Marshall at 38, that would be incredible. And really, if you look at the wide receiver room with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, it's not as much of a pressing need as the offensive line. So I'd definitely be going Penei Sewell.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've been on the offensive line topic. Let's talk about a few of the later 1st round offensive linemen. So Zach Kiefer from The Athletic mentioned that the Colts have real interest in Christian Darrisaw at 21.
Yes.
Right, the Colts are at 21. Yeah, I think that pick makes a lot of sense. I think everyone's been mocking an offensive tackle to the Colts ever since the retirement of Anthony Costanzo.
I just don't think Darrisaw will be there.
Oh, I completely agree. I think he should be picked before then. But I just think, with 1, a quarterback run in the top 5, and 2 with probably 3 wide receivers going before that as well, I think one of the offensive tackles is going to fall, and I think Darrisaw probably will be there at 21. So that's a pick that I would think strongly about adding to my mock draft. And then another later 1st round tackle that's getting a lot of attention, Tevin Jenkins. He's a guy that I really fell in love with the second time I watched his tape. He's just a mauler. He's a nasty man with a great mean streak, and that's just something I love seeing while I'm watching offensive linemen. He's been connected to both the Jets, the Titans, and the Steelers. I would be surprised to see him fall out of the top 24. It goes the Titans at 22, the Jets at 23, the Steelers at 24. I think one of those 3 teams are going to pick him. I think offensive line makes sense for all 3 of those teams. So I think it just comes down to who's there on the board for the Titans at 22, whether they pick him or not, and then also the Jets at 23. And I think the Steelers really need offensive line help. So I think if he's there at 24, the Steelers will take him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think right now I'd say the Jets are probably the most likely to land Tevin Jenkins. And One player who's really generated a lot of buzz this week with some of these reports is Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle from Alabama. And Lance Zierlein said that teams are really a lot higher on him than the media, and that he will be the only defensive tackle taken in round one. And Jim Nagy, the ESPN draft analyst who runs and organizes the Senior Bowl, said that, again, the NFL is a lot higher on him than the media is, and that some teams even view him as a top 15 talent. And so I think this could be shaping up for Christian Barmore to surprise people on draft night with how early he goes. I have a 1.9, so a late first-round grade on him. I know you have a 2.4. You're a little lower on him. But I think that how thin this defensive tackle class is outside of Barmore could really help him in that case. And I'm just intrigued to hear, what do you think are some potential landing spots for Barmore? Because I haven't, now that there's all these reports of him potentially going pretty high, I still haven't heard a specific team being connected to him. So where do you think he could land in the first round?
I honestly haven't heard one team connected to him. I've just heard reports that he could go first round. Like you said, Jim Nagy, top 15 talent. I highly, highly doubt he will go in the top 15.
Oh, he won't.
But I think the back half of the first, we could see him. I think, honestly, if we go working backwards, I think you could see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking him at 32. And Ndamukong Suh, obviously they re-signed him, but he's old. And I think they would love to continue to have a really good defensive line. I think another team, maybe the Buffalo Bills at 30. Just, trying to think of teams that might have a need at defensive tackle at this point. I think maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars at 25. Mm-hmm. And I say that because, like we've talked about before, Urban Meyer wants to take players that he's comfortable with, that he either personally knows or people he's close with knows. He has a relationship with Nick Saban, obviously the Alabama head coach. And I think if Nick Saban does talk highly of him, which we don't know if he does or not, but I know him and Urban Meyer have a relationship. So if Nick Saban does like Christian Barmore and trust him as a player, I could see Urban Meyer taking him at 25.
Yeah, I would also add the Green Bay Packers to that list. I think that they could really shore up the interior part of that defensive line. And again, we're really hearing that he might be going earlier than we expect. So maybe he's not even there for that stretch at the end of the first round. And I'll throw out the Las Vegas Raiders as a potential name for Christian Barmore. We've all seen the mock drafts. Every single person and their mothers has Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the hybrid linebacker from Notre Dame, being picked at 17 by the Raiders. And I mean, chances are that still happens because we've seen in the past how people can just catch on to what the Raiders are doing. Like with Josh Jacobs, basically everybody knew they were going to take him. But at the same time, Clelin Ferrell at number 4 was a huge reach. Nobody expected it. So while there are some picks that everyone expects, there also are some surprises from that front office right now. And I mean, Christian Barmore kind of just checks the boxes of a Raider pick to me, especially because he comes from a big school. In these last couple of years, they have been picking from these elite programs. And last year, their first pick was Henry Ruggs from Alabama. I think they could use a defensive tackle with the upside that Christian Barmore possesses. And so I would keep an eye on Barmore if the pick is not Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah at 17.
Yeah, like you said, I like picking from big programs. Josh Jacobs the year before.
Exactly.
So, I mean, they clearly love picking Alabama players. Mm-hmm. And judging of Raiders players over the past few years, they like football guys, like you said, guys from big programs. So I think Barmore does check those boxes. My one concern for Barmore, I mean, I have a few, but one of them was that he was inconsistent, in my opinion, at the beginning of the season. Doing some research, it seemed like it was from a knee injury that he suffered over the summer. But to me, that just might throw a little concern for the Raiders picking him at 17. I mean, I feel like the Raiders like those tough guys that, they're injured, they're going to play through it and not show any sense of injury at all. So
well, I don't think it was the injury. I think it's because he just was so inexperienced. What really allowed me to put a first round grade on Christian Barmore was that he improved as the season went on. His football intelligence really improved game by game. We saw him just blow up the college football playoff in those 2 games. So he's clearly trending in the upwards direction. And at the end of the day, he's a big school guy, and he has a really hot motor, and I think that's something that Mike Mayock really appreciates. I mean, he does not give up on a play, and he'll take the quarterback down by the shoestring at the end of a play because he just wants it that much. And I just watching him, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the guy the Raiders like.
Yeah. I think we move on to some other rumors, talking about positions that are a little weaker in this draft. Safety position. Tony Pauline said that Trevon Moehrig would be the first safety off the board, and he would likely be in round 1, but that's not a guarantee. If he does go round 1, what are some teams that you think could pick him?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are connecting him to the Jaguars, and I think that's smart because Urban Meyer really emphasizes speed on that back end, and he possesses a lot of that. But we were talking about this, I think, earlier this week, and Urban Meyer has really complained a lot about how different the NFL is from college. He really disliked how in free agency you're signing guys that you've never even met before, and it just sounds like he's going to want to lean on his college background and his experiences there, the connections that he's made there, and be able to use that rather than just going the conventional manner and taking a player that he doesn't really know much about. I expect him to take maybe an Ohio State guy, or he has a good connection with Nick Saban, as you mentioned earlier, and go an Alabama guy. So that's what discourages me from Trevon Moehrig. And then it's kind of tough. Like I would have to really look into these teams and look at their depth charts and their positional needs, because like what teams need a safety at the back of round 1? I think that back in round 1, we're going to be seeing defensive ends, offensive tackles especially. I don't think safety is going to be a position of emphasis. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if Trevon Moehrig fell to the second round, which people are not currently projecting. I think that him and Richie Grant are guys that I see going off the board in the first 10 picks of round.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like you said, a lot of people into the Jaguars, but I don't see that. Like you said, about Urban Meyer. I don't see a team that has a pressing need at safety in the back for the last 10 picks or so in the first round. So I can't really see a safety going off the board there. But the Urban Meyer thing with the Jaguars at 25. I really think he's going to go with a guy that he knows really well. Like you said, I would not be surprised if you see a guy like Wyatt Davis go to – it would be a little bit early for where anyone's projecting him, but don't be surprised if that happens. Touching on some of the positions that we think could go on runs in the late first round, I think defensive end is a position that we could see happen. I think we're going to see 2 or 3 corners go in the end of round 1. I think Caleb Farley, it still seems like he's going to find his way in the first round, probably towards the end.
His agent told Adam Schefter, which Adam Schefter tweeted, meaning he probably thinks that that's pretty credible, that Caleb Farley was cleared medically, or not cleared, but really the physicals and medicals went well at this week's combine or medical combine, and Farley's still expected to go in the first round. So providing some context for that.
Yeah. So Farley probably the back half of the first round, probably Kelvin Joseph too. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a guy, maybe Eric Stokes go in the end of the first round, or Aaron Robinson. I know a little bit earlier he got some first round buzz. So I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe 3 cornerbacks go in the last 12 or so picks in the first round. What are some other positions you think we could see runs on?
I just really think the offensive tackles are going to be coming off the board. And after pick 20, I think Tevin Jenkins is going to be going off the board. If you look at the Chiefs, I think they're going offensive tackle, and there's just so many names that could be picked, like Liam Eichenberg, even Dylan Redunce has been getting first round buzz, as Tony Pauline said. The Steelers at 24, I could see 3 or 4, and if Darrisaw slips to 21, that also is in the late stretch of round 1. We could potentially see offensive tackles go 21, 23, 24, and 31. So that's how I see it. And before we wrap this up, I think we've really got to talk about Davis Mills and Kellen Mond. I know that their stock has really been rising rapidly. A week ago, Jim Nagy said that these two guys are not getting out of round two. And it seems like they're going to be going ahead of Kyle Trask, which was my bold take a few weeks ago and is looking to be in good shape to come true. What really shocked people, myself included, is that Peter Schrager put out his first mock draft, and 32nd overall, he had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Davis Mills, the quarterback from Stanford. And he said that there's a lot of buzz around the league that Davis Mills is going to be the QB6, and he might end up in the first round. I think this is the kind of yearly talk of this quarterback in the next tier is going to maybe sneak into the first round. That just doesn't happen. Christian Hackenberg a few years ago, people were saying he might go first round. But a few years before that, Matt Barkley was set to potentially go first round. I mean, I think Davis Webb got first round buzz a couple years ago. So people really get carried away in this sense. And I think Davis Mills is more of a round two guy. And I know that Albert Breer connected him to the Patriots. But the Patriots were also connected by Jim McBride of the Boston Globe to Kellen Mond. So maybe the Patriots might be digging into this day two well, trying to reproduce what happened with Jimmy Garoppolo a few years ago. Maybe this guy they develops really well and manages to stay healthy, unlike Garoppolo, and they can actually rely on him as the long-term guy. But I'm just intrigued to hear what you think of this recent buzz around Davis Mills and Kellen Mond and where they might go. And maybe provide a couple teams that could be interested in looking at them.
So I first want to touch on what you said about quarterback being thrown in the late first round conversation. It happens every year, like you said. You mentioned a bunch of guys. Jacob Eason last year he was thrown out in the late round one conversation. That didn't happen. Happens every year. That guy never goes in the first round. He'll go in the second round, maybe in the third round, like Matt Barkley did 2013. Regarding teams, I think a team that we've heard of, Pittsburgh Steelers, and also the New Orleans Saints. But they've been connected to Kyle Trask as well. I would not be surprised at all to see the Saints take a quarterback in round 2 or 3. I think they do have Taysom Hill. They do have Jameis Winston, but neither of those guys are for sure franchise quarterbacks. I would not be surprised at all to see the Saints bring in one of those quarterbacks. I think Kyle Trask would be a mistake. I don't think he has starter potential. I think that Mills and Mond too, although they're much riskier picks, they're guys you could see as a starter or be out of the league in a couple of years just because they're a project that didn't work out. I think that's a team to watch with all three of those. The Steelers as well, they make a lot of sense. Obviously, the Patriots, you mentioned them, and the Chicago Bears as well. They're a team that's been brought up to be looking at the day 2 quarterbacks. So I think those are 4 teams. The last team that I'll mention, we mentioned them earlier, being really interested in moving up to take Trey Lance. The Washington football team, I think they would be interested in a day 2 quarterback if they could not move up for Trey Lance. And I think Kellen Mond or Davis Mills would be a target for them.
Yeah, I'm just going to take these 3 guys in this tier, Mond, Mills, and Trask, and I'm just going to assign them a team right now. We'll come back to this later, see if it comes true or not. This is just off the top of my head right now. I mean, let's say Davis Mills going to New England in round 2. It kind of fits that mold of the Jimmy Garoppolo pick a few years ago. Get this guy who really the downside with Jimmy was that he was from a small school. With Mills is that he's only made 11 starts, but has some physical and athletic tools to work with. Try to mold him into the next guy. We're going to give Kellen Mond to the Washington football team. I think they'll try to move up in round 1, but I mean, they're coming from so far down at 19th that I don't see anyone wanting to move that low because if somebody wants to trade down, they probably still want to stay in range of the top tier of non-quarterback prospects in this draft. So I think it's going to be hard for Washington, and maybe they'll settle on Kellen Mond, who really possesses some of those athletic traits that could be maybe similar to Cam Newton. With Ron Rivera, he didn't really use them much at Texas A&M, but in the NFL, you could see a coach try to get more of that running ability out of him. And let's send Kyle Trask of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know the Saints have also been connected with him, but he just isn't like that athletic toy at quarterback that it seems like Sean Payton wants now. And meanwhile, in Pittsburgh, they've had a guy who I mean, can throw on the run well, but isn't really a dynamic threat like in Ben Roethlisberger. And so maybe they'd be looking at Kyle Trask in round 3, and I think it'd be a similar pick to Mason Rudolph, just in that portion of the draft, and kind of just a dart thrown at the board, and it doesn't end up really sticking. But those are my picks as of right now. Don't know if they'll be in my final 7-round mock draft, which we'll be posting each of us in on the Wednesday night before the draft, but. How about let's just throw out those team connections and come back to them?
I like what you did there, and I will make my 3 connections as well. I thought it was a great idea, and who knows? Maybe we come back 3
and we impress ourselves.
We were right, yeah. But I'm gonna send Davis Mills to the Patriots. Sorry, I said that incorrectly. I'm gonna send Kellen Mond to the New England Patriots. I think he fits that. They have Cam Newton there. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a more similar play style to Cam Newton than Davis Mills is. I'm going to send Davis Mills to the New Orleans Saints. I really think we're going to see the Saints pick a quarterback.
Yeah.
Round 3, let's send Kyle Trask to the Steelers. I think that just makes a lot of sense. Like you said, it's a similar body to Ben Roethlisberger. Although that's not the prototypical quarterback in this day and age in the NFL, I think that it just you can see the connection there with Kyle Trask and Big Ben.
Yeah, I think that was a fun little exercise. Is there any other rumor that sticks out to you from this past week that you want to go over before we get off air?
I think the last one we can touch on, Jamin Davis.
I was just about to say that. Yeah,
he's a high rising linebacker. And I don't have a 1st-round grade on him, but I do like what I see. I have a 2nd-round grade on him. I don't like the talk of him going ahead of Micah Parsons. Strictly talent-wise, I think Micah Parsons is a better player than Jamin Davis. I think the talk we could be hearing about Jamin Davis going ahead of Micah Parsons, though, shows us that teams do have concerns with Micah Parsons' character.
Yeah, I want to clarify that this talk is Charlie Campbell from Walter Football, who said that Jamin Davis could be the first linebacker selected ahead of Micah Parsons and go in the top 20. I don't think that report is coming true. I still think that both Micah Parsons and Zaven Collins are going to be going ahead of him, but Jamin Davis could slip into the 1st round. I mean, I'd keep an eye on the Cleveland Browns for whichever of these linebackers ends up still being there at 26. They could really use another talented defender to put him in that 2nd level and really try to elevate the defense, because they don't have any really specific need. I think that's a well-built roster. They just need to keep adding even more talent to try to make a deeper playoff push.
Yeah, I think linebacker's kind of been the position that everyone's mocked to the Browns. I think it's their biggest position of need. I had Zaven Collins going there for a while in mock drafts, but it seems like he's rising up boards as well fairly quickly. So I think Jamin Davis would be a name to watch for the Browns.
Yeah, and I think that wraps up our show. So thank you very much for joining us, and make sure to check out tomorrow, Monday, the 12th. Alex will be putting out his mock draft on our Instagram page, so go check that out. Tell us in the comments how you feel about it. It's really just really the culmination of analyzing all these reports, putting them into context, and trying to produce the best prediction possible. And then we will be having both of our final 7-round mock drafts posted before the draft, as I said earlier. So tons of fun stuff ahead of us at Bold Take Scouting. So make sure to stick with us. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and this was a rumor discussion for this podcast. Be sure to check out our Instagram page every Sunday. We're posting huge rumor mills. Today's Sunday. We posted 5 pages of rumors. There was about 30 in there. So we pretty much discussed most of those. If you want to see all of them, check us out on Instagram, like Kosta said, at Bold Take Scouting. My mock draft will be posted Monday the 12th. We have 8 more scouting reports to post, including Davis Mills and Kellen Mond.
And all the other quarterbacks have already been posted.
Yep, and then we will be posting our positional rankings, our big boards, and our final mocks. And draft week, I think we'll be doing a fan mock draft as well. So be sure to check us out. There's a lot of stuff going down these next few weeks. And we'll be with you guys to walk you through the last few weeks before the draft, talk about the rumors.
And then break down the draft.
and all of that. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Bold Take Scouting podcast.